大家好，我好開心，好高興睇咁多人嚟參加今日嘅座談會。I'd like to welcome Housing Minister, Housing and Diversity and Inclusion Minister Ahmed Hussein, as well as Parliamentary Secretary of Diversity, Secretary Chang, as well as MP Sean Chen of Scarborough North and Don Valley North, MP Han Dong. Thank you for coming to Scarborough Aging Court and also coming to Splendid China Mall. I'd like to welcome all the members of the Chinese media here today. What a great showing. Thank you. And I'd like to also extend my gratitude to Terrence Ma, who's seated right there, for hosting, for allowing us to have this space to host this event. We'll be each taking a few minutes to talk about Budget 2022 with a view to discussing seniors, health, the economy, diversity, and especially housing. Budget 2022 does three main things. First, it invests in economic growth and innovation. Number two, it invests in people. And thirdly, it invests in a clean future. All of these three things are about creating jobs, growing our economy, but they also help to make life affordable. You cannot have a strong and growing economy without more homes. You cannot have a strong and growing economy without a diverse and talented workforce. You cannot have a strong and growing economy a decade from now if you do not invest in the green transition today. Nearly 1 in 5 Canadians is age 65 or older. The 2021 census shows seniors over the age of 85 making up one of the country's fastest growing demographics. The number of people over 85 has more than doubled since the 2001 census. With that in mind, the federal government plays the leading role in providing seniors with much needed income support. Starting in July 2022, there'll be a 10% increase to OAS pensions for seniors aged 75 and up. With OAS and GIS benefits indexed quarterly to the Consumer Price Index, this will help keep pace with inflation. As the government assesses any further increase to GIS, Budget 2022 seeks to expand important programs and continue to support the quality of life that seniors deserve. To keep seniors active and engaged in the community, Budget 2022 proposes $20 million over 2 years to expand the New Horizons Seniors program. Budget 2022 has also proposed an expert panel to study an aging at home benefit. And also, we will be engaging with experts on the possibility of a career extension tax credit to boost the participation of seniors in the labor force. I would now like to introduce our hardworking and innovative Housing, Diversity and Inclusion Minister, Ahmed Hussein, to deliver some remarks. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jean. Thank you so much for having me here. I want to really thank all my colleagues who are here for taking the time of their busy schedule to have all of us appear in front of you to update you on the latest initiatives contained in Budget 2022 that seek to tackle the challenges facing Canadians, the affordability challenges, and also the opportunities that we have to grow our economy and economically develop our people. I want to thank Sean Chen for being here and for all that he does for the community and for all Canadians in his constituency, as well as Jean Yip. I want to thank Paul Chang, my Parliamentary Secretary for Diversity and Inclusion, for his hard work for his constituents of Markham Unionville, but also on behalf of all Canadians. And of course, my good friend and colleague Han Dong, not only for being here, but for really being a tireless public servant, both provincially in the past and now in the federal parliament. We are all here because we care and we are working very hard to make sure that we are in tune with the priorities of our constituents and with the priorities and interests of Canadians. And making sure that we continue to invest in young people, continue to invest in seniors, as Jean just articulated, but making sure that not only are we tackling the affordability challenges facing Canadians, we're also investing in their ability to prosper in the future so that we can have a very strong, inclusive economic growth. And one of the key aspects of that, which combines both the challenges facing Canadians with respect to affordability, but also prosperity and success, is housing, as Jean just indicated. Access to safe, affordable housing is key to anyone's ability to have a stable and then eventually successful life. And so whether it is someone who's on the street, who we need to permanently house, and we are all committed to ending chronic homelessness, to people who need more affordable rental housing, we are building that too. We're building the next generation of rental housing across Canada through the Rental Construction Financing Initiative, a $25 billion program that we're working in so many communities to build affordable rental, all the way to home ownership. If you looked at Budget 2022, that's what it talks about. It talks about, on one hand, putting more money to support 62 community entities to eliminate chronic homelessness, also putting more money to house the most vulnerable through the National Housing Co-Investment Fund, the Rental Construction Financing Initiative, and then extending the Rapid Housing Initiative, which I know, Scarborough benefited from, all our constituents, and building new co-op buildings for the first time in 30 years. But the main pieces were also around home ownership. What are we doing for people who want to access their dream of home ownership? Well, number one, we're going to build more housing. Canada has the fastest growing population in the G7, but our supply of new housing has not kept up with that reality. So Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has said that our government, the Government of Canada, will lead a national effort to double the number of new homes built in Canada in the next 10 years, build an approximate number of 3.5 million new homes in Canada. And as a first step to show Canadians early progress, we will be putting forward $4 billion in a housing accelerator fund to build 100,000 affordable homes immediately, and in partnership with municipalities. We'll be investing in their capacity to build more and to build faster. The second thing we're doing is we're fighting really hard to be there for first-time home buyers. How? By introducing a first-time home buyer tax-free savings account of up to $40,000. That's tax-free going into the account and tax-free coming out. It's not a deferred tax. You don't pay tax on that money. The second thing we're doing is we're doubling the first-time home buyer tax credit to $10,000. This is to help with the costs of closing purchase of a house, things like the lawyer's fees, things like title insurance, and so on. The third thing we're doing is we're extending the first-time home buyer incentive. This is the program that allows the Government of Canada to pay up to 10% of the value of a new home in the form of a down payment for those Canadians who cannot come up with a down payment, but who can pay the mortgage. That program is being extended to 2025. The third thing we're doing is cracking down on speculation. We will end blind bidding in Canada, because blind bidding is leading to astronomical increases in house prices. We will introduce a home buyer bill of rights, and we're banning foreign investment in residential real estate in Canada for 2 years to see the impacts of that. And then finally, as I said earlier, we will invest more in affordable housing. $14.1 billion more to build more than 100,000 new homes in the Housing Accelerator Fund, 6,000 new homes in the Rapid Housing Initiative, 6,000 more homes through co-ops, and 22,000 more in the National Housing Co-Investment Fund. $2.9 billion brought forward through that fund. So, if you look at that program collectively, you see elements there. Most housing supply, helping first-time home buyers, tackling speculation and unfair business practices, and then building more affordable housing. So we're trying to tackle everyone's housing needs across the spectrum. And that's what we expect from our government to do. Canadians expect us to do that, to use our tools, but also to work collaboratively with the other governments and the private sector and the non-profit sector. And our national housing strategy covers all of that. So I'm pleased to be here. Obviously, we'll have an opportunity for further discussion and questions. But I want to turn the mic now to my good friend Paul Chang to say a few words.
I just would like to also mention that should you have any problems understanding any one of us, you can go to Wendy for Mandarin translation. She has her hand up there, or you can go to Michael Huang for any Cantonese translation, and his hand is there. Thank you. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Jean. Thank you for inviting me here today. And Minister, thank you so much for your leadership and advocacy in housing and the budget for all Canadians. And I'm so happy to join you all here today with my colleague MP Han Dong and MP Sean Chan for their tireless work within the GTA, helping all the communities here in Scarborough, Don Valley, and the Markham area. My name is Paul Chang. I'm the Member of Parliament for Markham Unionville. And I'm also the Parliamentary Secretary for Diversity and Inclusion. And I would like to thank you all for joining us today to discuss the important challenge that Canadians face and how we can all move forward together in Canada. Diversity is a fact, but inclusion is a choice. And there's still work to be done to make Canada a country that is truly equal for everyone. In my portfolio as a Parliamentary Secretary, I'm working on a national action plan to combat hate crime. So I'm doing consultation work across the country with stakeholders so we can eliminate hate and racism across this country of ours. Just so you know, hate crime in 2020 jumped up by 37% over 2019. And that is the year when COVID started. So we don't know if it's attribution of COVID or it's just a rise in hate crime, a rise in extremism here. I know the past 2 years has been extremely difficult for all Canadians, and the barriers and vulnerabilities that we face as Asians, as Blacks, and as racialized Canadians, Indigenous people, persons of disability, women, seniors, and LGBTQ communities. So in Budget 2022, we introduced new measures to promote more equitable and more inclusive Canada, and to build communities where everyone is empowered to succeed. I would like to once again thank you all the Chinese media friends that are here for joining us today, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have of me. Thank you.
Thank you. And now we go to my good neighbor, Member of Parliament for Scarborough North, Sean Chen.
Thank you very much, Jean. My riding is to your east, and I'm sitting to your east today, so it makes perfect sense. It's a pleasure to be here with Minister Hussein, Jean Yip, our neighbor, and of course the host for today's press conference and meeting, and my colleagues and good friends, Parliamentary Secretary Chang and MP Dong. I want to say to you how wonderful it is to see everyone here today in person here at Splendid Mall, and of course this is such an important part of our Scarborough community. Thank you to Terrence Ma for hosting this event. I'm here to talk to you about healthcare, and we all know how health is important. Throughout these past 2 years, all of us have had moments to reflect on our own health and the health of those around us, especially our loved ones and the most vulnerable, like our seniors. And that is why our government continues to invest in health and to work together with our partners at the provincial and territorial levels all across this country to support the health and well-being of Canadians. Since the start of the pandemic, our government has invested in Canadians. And that has included investments totaling over $69 billion to ensure that Canadians stay safe, remain healthy, and are protected. And as we continue to work together with our provincial and territorial counterparts, our government continues to improve access to mental health care. We will continue to support the other levels of government in reducing the backlogs that exist across the country to access important surgeries and procedures. And we are continuing to bolster our health system, knowing how important it is moving forward. Through this budget, Budget 2022, our government is introducing innovative new programs, and that includes dental care for Canadians. We know how important that is because a third of Canadians don't have access to dental coverage. I can tell you from my own experience, being a 25-year-old, not having coverage under my parents at that point, and not having the proper employment to have dental care, and working precarious jobs, and thinking about whether or not I should go to the dentist. And no Canadian should have to make that choice, because we know that 1 out of 5 Canadians today choose not to see the dentist even though they require dental care. We are also investing to support more doctors and more nurses and more health professionals, particularly in rural parts of the country. We're taking steps to invest in improving Canada's dementia and brain health research. We are supporting the investments into long-term care and making sure that we are prepared for the future to ensure that COVID infections are addressed across the country. And Canadians have had access to the Wellness Together portal that was set up, and we will continue to support that initiative so that Canadians can get connected to the mental health and well-being services that they need. So in summary, our government will continue to strengthen Canada's public health system. We are very proud of this system. We are working to expand it further through investments in areas like dental care and pharmacare. And through this budget, we will continue to support the health and well-being of Canadians. I look forward to your questions, and I will pass it back to our host, Jean, to introduce our next speaker. Thank you.
Thank you, Sean, and over to my neighbor to the west, MP for Don Valley North, Han Don.
Thank you. It's my pleasure to join Jean and my good colleagues and Hamid for today's forum. I'll probably just give my remarks in Chinese. I know there are a lot of Chinese media here. 大家好，大家下午好，我是党外林诺斯国会议员董汉鹏。今天很开心呢，可以和我们的胡生部长还有我们的新晋蒋议员，也是我们的那个国会的多元文化部的议会秘书一起呢，还有金呢，还有上一起呢和大家见面聊一聊最近这个2022年的这个联邦的预算。我在我的角度上来看，这个预算呢其实是一个经济类的预算。为什么这么说？在疫情之前呢，加拿大的各项的经济指标呢是非常健康的是领先其他工业国的。不管是debt to GDP 的这个比例，或者是就业率或者是经济增长的速度，都是领先其他工业国。这就是为什么我们在疫情当中呢，可以花数以千计的千亿计的那个投资来保护加拿大民众和加拿大的小生意而没有被国际的那评级的一些机构而降级。而走出这个疫情呢，经济复苏呢，我看到的是，在我们这个强劲的经济的动力之后呢，如果你按人口算的话，看个人的生产力的话，我们其实在 OECD 的那些国家里面还是排名比较后面的。那怎么去增加我们整个经济体它的生产力，它的动力，这就要看我们怎么去照顾到个人让他们 让他们可以发挥到自己最大的潜力。这就为什么前面我们胡森部长说的 affordable housing 那么重要。那你的工资税后60%、50%、60%都是去了 mortgage 或者去了租金，这种生活会影响到你工作的时候的产值的。包括呢，还有很多我们知道妈妈要在家里照顾孩子，这就为什么我们会推出全国10元1天的托儿服务，包括这一次的这个牙医保，各项看上去好像是社会福利，其实是有深远的刺激经济的深远的意义的。那待会儿呢，有机会我也和大家可以分享一些数据啊。在投资方面，这次的预算呢拿出了150亿建立了一个叫 Canada Growth Fund， 来吸引国外大的一些私企来到加拿大投资，创造高产值的就业机会也帮助我们打造一个绿色经济。我们也看到了10亿创造一个创新投资局联邦层面的，来打造这些就业机会包括我们这次也看到很多比较利好。我特别是我们华人比较关心的这个移民上面的政策，前段时间对留学生、对海外的劳工都开放，这些开放类的移民政策呢，也就是为了去提高我们全民的生产能力，包括来解决我们现在的劳工市场短缺问题。所以待会儿有机会呢，我很乐意和大家聊一聊这经济类，包括赤字包括国债类的一些问题。如果有问题呢，我很乐意回答。好，谢谢大家。Thank you.
Thank you, Han. And now we are ready to take questions from the media. You can ask your question in the language of your choice, and we will translate it into English.
I know the incentive is very good in terms of like providing housing and everything, but this thing is like currently, especially in province of Ontario, right? There are like in between the municipalities and the federal government, there is the provincial government. So there are plans that override the municipalities' plans. That's what's happening right now. How do you make sure that the funding that you provided is consistent with what the residents or the municipalities need?
Thank you so much. I think you ask a very important question. What the municipalities need is really two things. One is they need, many of them lack the capacity, the fiscal capacity to increase, they don't have enough money to increase their capacity internally to approve more projects. For example, maybe they would like to hire more officers who deal with permits or who deal with zoning issues, and they don't have the fiscal capacity to do that. The other barrier that a lot of municipalities are running into, especially the big ones, is they just can't afford land to build affordable housing. It becomes cost prohibitive. So what we're saying with the Housing Accelerator Fund is that we will invest in your capacity to build more supply and to do things faster, but we expect results. So federal government is coming forward with $4 billion in investments in both capacity and results. And we're saying, you have to show us, we're not just going to give you the money to every municipality. We will only partner through that fund with municipalities that show a willingness to dramatically increase housing supply and be open to things like building around transit, building more housing around transit, allowing a little bit of more inclusionary zoning. Without that, then you're just going to be building single-family homes, and we want more mixed housing. So we're saying build more housing, including single-family homes for middle-class Canadians, but just do it faster. And if you can, if you are willing to do it faster, but you lack the capacity to do that, we will invest in your internal capacity so that you can build more housing supply and you can build it faster. Does that answer your question?
Well, I'm just saying that because in between there's the provincial like regulations, and they hold the key in terms of like.
Well, yes and no. Yes and no. So we've proven that we can work directly with municipalities when it's needed. If you look at the Rapid Housing Initiative, the provinces didn't block us. We worked directly with the cities, and they built housing in 12 months, and the provinces actually provided the wraparound support. So that was a good collaboration. What we are saying is, whether it's the provincial government or the federal government, all the housing money we're providing, or even within the private sector, all the developers who want to build more housing, the process takes too long. And so we want to enable the municipalities to build faster. The same, the housing that they were going to build and more, but the best way to ensure that that process continues and becomes sustainable is if we provide them with the ability to increase their own internal capacity. Let me give you a concrete example. Let's say they have 5 people who do permits in a particular municipality. We can come in and say, we will pay the salaries for you to hire 5 additional permitting officials. But we expect double the number of permits to be issued. So we expect you to move faster, deal with the backlogs, because those waiting times for projects that are viable, housing projects, are costing consumers more money. A single month of delay adds an additional average of $10,000 more to each apartment unit in a building that's being built. We can't continue that. So what we're saying is we're willing to invest, but we need to see political will among the municipalities to move forward and to be open to intensification, to transit-oriented development, inclusionary zoning, mixed housing, and so on.
This is Susan from FM 105.9. My question is that I know that Doug Ford has announced that he is going to build high-rise in Richmond Hill and Markham. I think there are some municipalities bill to go against it. So how would you address this different levels of government's conflict or handicap each other?
Well, first of all, on that particular project, I'm going to defer to my colleagues who are more familiar with that issue, who are closer to it. But in terms of how do you navigate the different orders of government, the best way to do that is to collaborate. And I gave you an example of the Rapid Housing Initiative. We said to municipalities, we will give you X amount of money to each municipality, but you have to build within 12 months, and you have to target 1 or more vulnerable populations. That was the condition. And guess what? All of them met the condition. Why? Because we weren't forcing them, but we said, if you want to access this money, this is what you have to do. The Housing Accelerator Fund will be the same. If a municipality does not want to do mixed housing, if they do not want to build more housing supply and do it faster, if they don't want to build around transit, that's up to them. They just won't have access to this money. We're saying, for you to access this federal dollars through the Housing Accelerator Fund, you have to show a willingness to build even regular housing faster and build more. Projects take too long to build. One more thing. I have seen situations in which developers are holding a piece of land in a municipality. They're willing to build housing for middle-class Canadians. They don't want any money from the government. But they're not getting the permit because the local municipality cannot take another 2,000 homes because the local water treatment plant is too small. So for them to expand the water treatment plant, they need money. So because of that lack of money for that water treatment plant, 2,000 homes are not being unlocked. So what we're saying is, through the Housing Accelerator Fund, we will allow that municipality to access that money, expand that water treatment plant, and then the developers build 2,000 more homes. You see? So it's about unlocking those opportunities, finding those light infrastructure projects that can result in more housing. So all of those things are eligible for the Housing Accelerator Fund. But this is the first time that any government is coming forward to help the municipalities to build more and to actually help their capacity. There are municipalities in Ontario and in Canada who are still using paper-based systems. We need to move them to digital, right? But again, we need to see results. That money will come with conditions.
Hello. Yeah. I'm Jeff Pan. I'm from the Toronto Chinese headline news media. I have one question is for Han Dong. Yeah. And very happy and the minister and with the 4 MP and to have the meeting with the general meeting. Han Dong, and I just say, and we know the federal the government also include every city, the province government spend a lot of money. But you know the global economic is not good enough. Also Canadian economic is not good, but you spend a lot of money. We know. We'd like to know and the Canada and the financial the situation. Yeah, why we can sell and can steal and use spend so much money in working. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the question. I'm going to give the mic to Paul because he's from Markham to give his view on the previous question, and I'll give you the answer on the first question.
For your previous reporter asking the question about the high density housing being built in Markham, that's along the corridor of Yonge Street, going up Yonge Street up to Highway 7. The province has approved high density housing in that corridor because of the subway, the Yonge subway line coming up to Highway 7. The challenge for us in the city of Markham is the province is not allocating space for open area, for green space, for the young people to play sports. They want to take away the green space and they only want to put housing there. And City of Markham is against this issue with the province, and they're fighting with the province about that, and the City of Markham wants to allocate green space for future, for young people can play soccer or football or baseball, but the province is against that. So there's a negotiation going on between the City of Markham and the province of Ontario, and we are hoping that we can have a positive result from that. Because the Yonge line, the province also did not want to put the Royal Orchard subway station there. They wanted not to do it, but the Royal Orchard subway stop is a very important stop. You're going to get about 100,000, 150,000 people living in that neighborhood, and you need that subway stop for people to utilize. So the province says, if I give you the stop, you don't get the green space. If you don't get the stop, you get the green space. So the province is being difficult in this one, but we in the City of Markham is hoping that we get the stop in, and also the green space. So thank you so much.
It's great to hear a local voice, African voice writing. 潘老师回答您的那个经济类的问题啊，我前面听到你对这个公众对国债和我们的 GDP 的比率啊，和我们的现在的这个赤字的现状啊，可能有些提问或者有些关注 concern 啊。其实我前面也说了，我们在疫情之前啊，加拿大的国民总值和它的债务的比率，我记得应该是在30几，30%几，现在呢应该是到47啊。但是呢，我们这个预算里面，real GDP 就是说我们把那个通货膨胀剔除呢，比那个国债的比率在5年之后，26、27年之后呢，将会回降到41%啊。那什么概念呢？就是现在其实7大工业国的国债和 GDP 的比率啊，它的平均值啊是在102%左右。 那其实加拿大现在47%呢，是在所有其他工业国里面是最健康的。那还有一个问题呢，就是我们现在的这么大的赤字，其实今年的赤字呢，比去年秋季的预算报告预计的赤字呢要低很多。而现在我们这个赤字呢，比起我们前两年抗疫这个数以千亿计的这个开销也是少了很多。而我看到呢，今后的5年到26、27年这5年里面的 deficit 会降很多啊。然后呢，从而达到了41%的，我前面提过41%的数字。还有一个数字是非常重要的，就是我们欠的国债每年要付利息，然后这个利息和我们的国民生产总值的比率是怎么比较？现在我可以告诉你是在1.4%，什么概念呢？就是在我们2007年、08年的时候，那个时候的利率相较现在还是比较高的啊。那个时候我们的国债的利率，就上一届政府国债利率比 GDP 的是2.1%，而我们最高的时候，就近几十年来最高时候在90年代啊，那个是在96年，我记得他们那个时候的国债的利率支付和 GDP 的比率呢是6%。那我说这些数字呢，是这些背景什么意思呢？就是说如果说国民对我们总体这个国家来承担、担负这个国债来 service 它，就像我们的借 mortgage 一样，每个月的利息给得起，这个问题呢是一个非常肯定的答案，没有问题啊。所以大家不需要有这方面的顾虑。当然，我们这一届政府，我看除了牙医保，其他各项的大的政策，包括我们的 housing 政策，包括我们的那个托儿政策。和对科技开发的这些投资、移民政策，这都是在我们21年选举的政纲里面的，没有很多新加出来的东西。所以往前走，我们现在也非常关注通货膨胀。这个预算呢有一个非常不一般的地方，就是它把今后5年的那个 forecast 做成2个 scenario， 一个是比较 moderate scenario， 一个是比较 extreme 的 scenario。因为现在我们有个俄乌战争。我们不知道通货膨胀和供应链之后的走向是什么，所以呢，它做了2个版本，就是在最差的版本，我们每年的那个利率的支付能力和 GDP 呢是在1.9啊，也是在我们可以承担的范畴下面的，所以大家不用担心，我们财长和我们那个国会议员都对这方面非常小心的关注。谢谢。
Thank you, Han. And we have one more question.
Hi, I'm from YE News Media. So, as a student, I'm wondering if the international student that count as an overseas buyer. If not, can we enjoy the support for the first house purchase in Canada? If not, will the international student be banning for buying houses?
Yes, international students can buy homes in Canada. International students are not impacted by the ban against foreign buyers. In terms of the first-time home buyer incentive, to my knowledge, they're not. I don't believe they're eligible. Are they part of that system? I'm not sure. I'll have to get back to you on that. But what I can confirm is that they're not banned from purchasing a home in Canada. International students can buy a house in Canada.
I remember in the platform they're not eligible for the first home buyers. But I do want to point out to your question, you probably remember provincially the international student foreign workers were exempt from the 15% tax, which has been cancelled by the current government. But this budget, the minister is absolutely right. The international students for their first principal residence purchase, and they're not included in the ban, and as well as for foreign worker permit holders, they're exempted as well.
Just to be clear, they can purchase a home if they're international students or workers. Are there any more? One more question? Okay.
Yeah, it's Susan again. I have a follow-up question. I know that the high-density building is going to be a challenge for municipality to be able to fulfill all those infrastructure that follow through with the whole project, right? So I know that in Singapore, it's very, very high density. Have we actually studied their model, like become a garden city, like going high rise, let's say Manhattanization, those type of plans?
So it is part of, I think what you're referring to is part of the both municipal and provincial planning under the Planning Act. They look at those kinds of things. We are ready, and we have been a good partner on all these issues. So one of the things we're doing as a federal government is we are prioritizing infrastructure projects that will unlock housing. So if there's two projects from one municipality, one of them is a regular infrastructure project, the other one will unlock housing, like for example the water treatment example I gave. We will prioritize that one. So we're ready to be partners, and the plan that I was talking about is not just about densification in the same style as Singapore. I mean, that's one of the options, but it's also about inclusionary zoning, even in the regular course of business. It's about making sure that there's a healthy mix of housing. Some single-family homes, some townhouses, some duplexes, some low rises, some mid rises, and yes, some high rises. So we have to have a mix. But the point is also supply. Why is a project, if a developer comes, or if a non-profit comes to a municipality and applies, why is it taking so long? And I have seen so many examples of private developers as well as non-profit groups going to municipalities in Ontario, where they say, okay, what do I need to do? Tell me all the things I need to do to get a permit or to start building. And they're told, okay, you need to do 1, 2, 3. They go and they spend time to do 1, 2, 3. They spend time and money. They come back and they're told, okay, now you need to do 4, 5, 6. Well, that's bad client service. Why can't you tell them to do, why can't you give them everything that they need to do up front? So it's like a deliberate process sometimes to find reasons to say no. I have seen affordable housing projects as well as private developments that are really needed in our province that are just taking either so long or are being rejected for the most flimsy reasons. And by the way, some of the rules around building new housing contradict each other. So we need to incentivize, we're not forcing anybody, but we want to incentivize municipalities to go back to the drawing boards and say, okay, what do we need to actually have housing for the future of this community? Second, how can we build it faster? And how can we help you? We're not attacking municipalities, we want to help. But the issue is we need more housing in this country. And we already have a shortage of housing. And we will have 401,000 new permanent residents, immigrants that we need to build our economy. We need to house them. Housing is going to be even more and more an economic development issue. But in many ways, even though housing is a challenge, it could be an opportunity. It could be an opportunity. And if we find the right mix of housing and if we're able to build housing faster and we have more affordable housing options for families, we can continue to attract the best and the brightest from around the world, the most highly skilled workers, to come and grow our economy. But if we don't address this issue, it's going to be a huge, huge issue for people who are trying to come and live in Canada, and it's going to be harder for young families to have a safe and affordable place to call home. So we need to address this, but we cannot do it alone. The Government of Canada has some tools, the province, as you said, has some tools, the municipalities have some tools. We need everyone to be in the same direction.
There's one more question from Brent or from?
So we have have two last questions if the time allows.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry, we'll take them together, okay? All right.
Hello, I'm Eric from Canada Observation, 加拿大观察. My question to Minister Olsen would be, because current market, all the cost for material is like increasing rapidly, numbers of travel all increasing like 40–50%. Is there any policy from the government wise to, control the budget in order to do all these affordable housings? And is there any policy to train or educate more skilled workers in order to, support this whole process to be successful?
On the skilled workers, yes, there is a policy. If you look at budget 2022, there is a significant amount of money, over $1 billion, going towards enabling more Canadians to obtain the necessary skills to both get a job but also help us build our economy, including building housing. So there is money there under different pockets, for example, increasing the number of apprentices and others, and I'm happy to welcome my colleagues to add to that. On the issue of increasing costs of housing materials, materials needed to build housing, at least on the affordable housing side, through the National Housing Strategy, we are flexible enough to take into consideration those increases up to a point we're able to accommodate and make sure that those housing projects proceed. But once again, supply is a key part to this. It's not the only tool, but more supply means stabilization, stability of prices, and hopefully enabling more people to access and be able to afford those homes. The tighter the supply, the more pressure on the prices. And when you look at what happened during the COVID pandemic, the issue about increasing in home prices wasn't just an issue of price increases, it was also an unavailability of supply. Even if you're willing to pay the increase in the price, you're competing with so many people.
I also got a question to MP Paul Chang. Is there any detail you can share with us for the generational home renovation tax credit? Thank you.
Thank you so much for your question. Many Canadians have tradition of living together in multi-generational home, and our government will be looking at giving a $7,500 tax credit on you building, like renovating a basement and including that so that you can have a basement apartment for your grandparents or for your children to live with you. So there is that $7,500 credit that we're going to give to people. And this is to support families, to support people that want to live together so they can afford it, or they want to look after their parents so they can all live together in the same home.
I have a quick question. I'm Grant Wolf from FM 1059. So my quick question is that now the government is doing everything to try to make the housing more affordable. But in the meantime, I think that will make the house price lower. I think a lot of people are concerned about that, who already purchased a house. They don't want their property to be depreciated. So what do you think about their concerns?
Well, the question implies that I think what you're suggesting is that the government of Canada is responsible for house prices. We're not. We're not responsible for setting the price of homes. That's up to the market. What we're responsible for, and we have a duty to Canadians, is to make sure that every Canadian has a home. And how do we do that? We look at the needs. We look at those who are on the street, find and build permanent housing for them through the Rapid Housing Initiative. And then we look at first-time home buyers, right? Make sure that they're able to get into the market and get a foot into the market, and have the dream of home ownership. But in terms of prices go up and down. That's up to the market. We don't control that.
Sorry, Sean would just like to add in a point.
I just want to add to the Minister's comments on that. The housing market will always go up and down, and over the past while, many Canadians have entered the market. I think most would agree that housing is a long-term investment, and throughout that time of investment, the prices will go up and down. What we're really focused on is those who are not yet in their first home, those who are waiting because they can't afford it, and that is why all these programs, as the Minister has outlined, is so important to enable Canadians who don't have a place to call home to be able to access affordable housing.
If I may, I want to quickly chime in on this. 郭台长好，您问的问题，我想很多的业主都是心里有这个担心哈。但是首先有一点，我们任何的投资啊，或者是自己住的啊，都是有风险的。在房市里面投资，如果是自己住的，对这个风险呢，可能敏感度不是很高啊。但如果是你作为真的是去做商业投资的话，会比较敏感。我们加拿大现在呢，有那个压力测试啊，还是非常保守的啊。所以呢，在买房的业主他们在买的时候呢，银行贷款之前呢，都会做这个压力测试，而这个压力测试呢，也是根据市场在不断的调整的。虽然我们看到最近的那个利率有往上涨啊，再加上压力它可能会对市场会有影响，但是我如果从经济的眼光上面前面去看的话，这个都是一些正常的情况，任何的市场都会会有 correction， 它都会有这个上下的浮动和趋势。而政府现在所做的所有的政策，从我的角度上来看，是比较精准的去帮助首次置业也好，或者是要租房的找不到房子也好啊，或者是需要其他什么，都比较精准的去帮助这些弱势、对居住有问题的人群。而它的目的呢，不是去通过一个政府的某些政策去调节市场的那个价值走向，这不是这是 budget 的这个意图。所以呢，而且不可能完成的，因为这个市场它的体量非常非常大啊，政府一年的 budget 这个也不够去调控这些的。所以呢，在利率方面呢，都是还是是有一种方法，但是它的压力测试之前，在买楼之前呢，就已经包括了在这方面的上下的浮动的一些风险。
Thank you, Han. I want to thank the Minister for coming today to so ably discuss the cornerstone of Budget 2022, which is the housing strategy, to look at supporting first-time home buyers in terms of demand and supply, as well as supporting our vulnerable population with housing needs, and lastly, to protect renters and buyers. So thank you also to my colleagues for also discussing different points of the budget today, and lastly to all of you for participating in today's media event. Thank you. And thank you to parents, the Splendid China Mall.